Welcome to the virtual mid-year informational meeting via YouTube. We are, for the first time, live streaming a video meeting. I apologize for being a little bit late, but I think we're ready to go now. Last year, we held the first mid-year meeting, and one of the reasons we did that is because of the number of snowbirds in our community, and thought most of them are not here in June when we were doing our annual meeting, so we initiated the update. Last year we focused on a couple of key items, and this year we've taken a different approach and are giving you a little snippet of a number of the different things that the Governing Board and the Association have been working on. I'm unmasked, but I will tell you that we came in with masks and we are seated in Palm Ridge, and we are 12 feet apart. That answers that question that people may have. I'd like you to know that if you have questions about any of the different topics as they are presented, we have a number of different presenters, that you may email your questions to questions@suncitywest.com. And those questions will be forwarded to me, and we will get you answers for them from our presenters. I'd also like to remind you that we have a Governing Board elections at the end of March, and there are 4 candidates. Please make sure that you are registered so that you can vote online. And to make sure that you are, you can go to vote@suncitywest, typed all the way out, .com, and check to make sure that you're registered to be able to vote in March. There will also be in-person voting, hopefully, at that time. Okay, our first, and by the way, I'm Sue Fitzsimons, the Vice President of the Governing Board for this year. Our first presenter is our General Manager, Bill Schwind, and he has 2 topics. The first one he's going to talk about deals with the recent law on legalization of marijuana and how it affects us at Sun City West. So I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, Sue, members of the board, and the Sun City West community. As you well know, the citizens of Arizona this year passed an ordinance regarding the legalization of marijuana in the state of Arizona, and how that affects us here in a planned community and the HOAs within the walls of Sun City West. So it amends Title 36 of the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, legalizing now marijuana for all individuals over 21 years of age. The law went into effect, and it's actually effective immediately. And sales of marijuana can begin once the Arizona Department of Health issues marijuana business licenses to those eligible businesses able to sell the product. So the yes vote, again, allows adults 21 years of age or over to possess and transfer up to 1 ounce of marijuana on their possession. It allows folks to cultivate marijuana for their personal use with limits. And we'll talk about some of those. It bans smoking marijuana in public places and open spaces. So a lot of our open space common areas here within the association, Beardsley Park and those types of things, walking around the track or hanging out at bocce courts or outdoor facilities that is not legal to smoke marijuana in those public places. And it also amends criminal classifications, penalties for marijuana possessions, and if you have any kind of records of marijuana in use and that type of thing on your record, those will be expunged. So Prop 207 basically allows the retail sale of marijuana at licensed establishments. It also imposes a 16% excise tax on the sale of marijuana, and that helps fund community colleges, infrastructure, public safety, and public health programs within the state of Arizona. The state and local regulations of the sale and product of marijuana are capped by a number of licenses. I do not at this point in time have an actual number to give you, but those, I'm sure, just like the existing medical marijuana facilities existing in the state today, those numbers are limited. So the learning curve, let's talk about that a little bit. When it comes to our policies, our procedures, the CC&Rs, and everything that we deal with within the walls at Sun City West. Again, any adult at least 21 years of age, is able to possess and transport or cultivate marijuana. However, prohibition and consumption on public places and the association on our properties is prohibited. So cultivating marijuana within any of our club facilities, be it the agricultural club or any of our greenhouse areas, is not allowed. Sheds and other outdoor buildings on personal property that are required for cultivation would need to check with your current living arrangements as far as your HOA that you live in, or if you're not in a specific HOA or just a resident within Sun City West. We do not allow outside independent sheds, but patios and those types of things that are attached to your home, I believe would be a legal facility. However, other rules and regulations do apply for that. And so the limitations and regulations that are associated with this new law allow 6 plants for an individual and 12 plants for any household with 2 or more members to cultivate those kinds of plants indoors. The cultivation must take place in a closet or a room or a greenhouse or an enclosed area on the grounds of the residence that's equipped with a lock or any other security device that prevents access by minors. And then the cultivation takes place in an area where marijuana plants are not visible from public view without the use of binoculars, aircraft, or other optical aids. I'm told that marijuana can grow to about 20 feet tall. So growing it outdoors potentially can be a problem. Again, from a legality standpoint, the width of these plants can get to about 2 or 3 feet wide, and greenhouses typically would then have to be taller than the property fences. And there you would run into issue, again, with CC&Rs and the living arrangements here within the walls of Sun City West. So just because it's legal to cultivate marijuana does not really mean it cannot be restricted by the policies, procedures, and the CC&Rs within our community. So it does restrict the installation of sheds and greenhouses as well. So some of the things that I think our CC&R division may run into with the passing of this law are nuisance claims. We do get several of those based on landscaping and the upkeep of yards and those types of things. And so we anticipate perhaps receiving some when it comes to people not understanding the law on the cultivation and use of marijuana. So odors and unsanitary things, unsightly or offensive, detrimental to people's property or the occupants. Again, we do see those types of complaints. However, the state has kind of ruled that to argue that smoke and smell are a nuisance does not really carry well in court. So if people smoke a cigar, for instance, as your next door neighbor enjoying a barbecue of some kind out there, you know, those types of smells can drift over into your backyard, into your residence and the like. But that is not really ruled, as far as the court scene goes at this point in time, as a legitimate nuisance. They will tell you to go inside for a few minutes or an hour and shut your windows and those types of things. So from a prosecutable offense, the odor from cigars or marijuana are typically not viewed as a legal nuisance. So other states that have had legalized marijuana, basically they'd have to prove an evidence of harm from secondhand smoke and only a potential risk of disease. So secondhand smoke is also considered not a nuisance. So where we see today, anyone smoking cigarettes at night on a patio is not substantial or unreasonable indifference to the use and the enjoyment of the property. Not being able to sit on a patio for up to an hour and a half does not rise to a nuisance occasion. Again, we're being told that the courts would basically recommend that you shut your windows, run a fan, clear the smoke, and that type of thing. So when it comes to common areas outside of your backyard, association property, the rules and regulations regarding cultivation and use in common areas are such that there is no smoking in common areas and no planting of marijuana within those common areas as well. So as we sit here today, we have a current policy. It's our Facility Policy 5, which is pursuant to Title 36-2814, which is basically allowing the use of marijuana currently in the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act. We are working with our attorney to come up with a simple amendment to that language that basically now reflects that through Prop 207, marijuana is actually a legal substance, and that new policy will be presented at an upcoming board meeting once the attorney gets the language that he is referencing as far as the amendment to our policy. So when it comes to employee concerns and employment, the rec centers of Sun City West still continues with our current employment policies and procedures. We can still enforce drug-free workplace, and we do, with respect to recreational marijuana. We still drug test for marijuana and other illegal drugs, both on the pre-employment side and as well as if there's any incidences where we have on-the-job injuries. So we can still discipline and terminate employees with marijuana in their system, but it's not an actual mandatory thing. It's a case-by-case scenario, but we still enforce our HR policies as is, even with the legalization of the substance. So in summary, I'd just like to say, again, that there is no consumption or cultivation on association property. No sheds or greenhouses are allowed on personal property, and the remaining option for those who want to cultivate for personal use is a locked room within their own homes. Employment policies and practices remain in effect regarding the drug-free workforce environment that we abide by. And that pretty much sums that up, and I'd be happy to answer any and all questions. But again, these rules are not created by the association. These are state laws that we are now under the advisement thereof. Thank you.
Okay, there may be questions that people send in, and we can take those as they come by at the end of our presentations, because there are no questions at this time. So Bill, why don't you go ahead and go into your COVID-19 update?
Thank you, Sue. We have been doing these updates on a bi-monthly basis, or actually twice a month, updating the board and various committees and association members as to what we're seeing and how we're dealing with the COVID crisis that we have found ourselves in. And so I just want to begin by talking a little bit about how that's affected our pay code activity, directly with employees affected with the virus, as well as their direct family members, and how we are coping with what we are kind of getting involved in. This little chart that you're looking at dates back to September of 2020 and gets us through the pay period at the end of the calendar year of December 31st. And as you can see, early on in September, not a whole lot of activity, not a whole lot of contact with COVID on the employee side. But as we get through the fall season and up into the Christmas and New Year's proportion of this program, you can certainly see the numbers are spiking as COVID has kind of made its mark here within Sun City West and affecting our employees. So through the end of the calendar year, it's been a $20,000 impact on our pay and about 1,300 hours worth of employee time off the books per se due to COVID affection. So again, we base a lot of our decisions, if not all of our decisions, on closing facilities and these types of things on the Arizona Department of Health and their recommendations for business operations. These came out and approved by the governor and the Department of Health back in August, and so we have been abiding by these science regulations as we have moved forward. Specifically, there are requirements for indoor gyms and fitness clubs and centers that we own and manage 4 of. So we do get a lot of complaints. We do get a lot of people talking to us about opening gyms and closing gyms and why are you doing that? And it's basically laid out in this program that has been delivered to the state and any and all businesses operating in the state of Arizona as recommendations on how to keep your facility safe. And so there are benchmarks that we look at, or the state looks at, and those are cases, number of cases, the percent of positivity in those cases, and the COVID-like illnesses that are currently in the hospital. And so they have benchmark numbers and recommendations for indoor gyms. So when the numbers on those benchmarks are at a minimal level, we're allowed to open at a 50% level. As things escalate, They regulate how many folks can come into your facility due to the confinedness of quarters as far as indoor facilities go. And then when these numbers hit substantialized numbers as far as over the top, as far as the health officials signify, they recommend that gyms and fitness centers close. And so here we are back in early November. I think this is pre-Thanksgiving, when the numbers were at the moderate level. Advancing into December, after the Thanksgiving holiday, these numbers have spiked within the state of Arizona and have gotten us to the substantial level. And then through the December, I believe, or this is early January, these numbers again after Christmas are still at a substantial level, in which we've continued to make our recommendation that these gymnasium and indoor facilities that we manage as per the state's direction remain closed. So it's always good to be number one, I think, except in this case. Arizona has the highest rate of COVID in the world. Not a great highlight. We have a lot of winter visitors. We got a lot of people coming into the state of Arizona, and we are doing everything that we can to make sure that our citizens within Sun City West and our owner members are treated fairly, kindly, and with all of the safety measures in place. So as cases climb, especially in age groups that are considered higher risk, it puts strain on an already strained hospital system. We communicate with our two local hospitals, both here, Boswell and Sun City West. The numbers that they are seeing, the number of beds, the number of folks in the ICUs are almost at a maximum level. Morgues are filling, and these are not good numbers. This is not a fun report to talk about. However, we do need to explain why we do what we do. And so a modeling team has been put together throughout the universities throughout the state of Arizona, and they've recently come out and said that they would recommend a 3-week closure or a shutdown for some of these facilities. We abide by that. We like listening to the recommendations from Arizona Department of Health and those in the field that are constantly dealing with this on a day in and day out basis. The Arizona, on the elected side, on the political side, they've basically told this modeling team to basically stop their work. And so they obviously have. But the state of Arizona and the Department of Health continue to rally and register as far as documentation of all the numbers, these benchmark numbers that we need to help make decisions on what we do. So new standards are now there in businesses for opening. The state has come out and said that they're no longer going to show anything that shows a substantial number. However, if you go to their webpage, they still produce numbers that say that. And so there's a little bit of a dichotomy there that we're struggling with. But again, we are siding with the side of science, and we'll let the politicians do what they do. No county can be classified anymore as having more than a moderate risk. However, if you still go to the Arizona Department of Health webpage, they are still documenting these numbers that they came out with early in the summer as far as benchmarks and safety. So until that changes, we are staying the course and adhering to the safety standards employed by the health professionals. So moving on. A former executive director for the Arizona Public Health Association calls this kind of decision and the politicizing of this kind of puzzling. Basically, the quote is, it just strikes me as kind of strange that we would have the resource in place on the university level that's doing this work for free and asking them to stop and basically give up on that data, and basically the health professionals don't understand really that way of thinking. This is a serious crisis. We've all been exposed to this now going on a year. I know everyone's getting tired of it, but until we can move forward, I think, and get through this vaccine program and get through these winter months and the holidays, until we can get these numbers back down, we all got to stay the course here and try to move this thing forward. So demographically, as far as the membership goes within our community, this is just a little picture that shows the average age of the folks that are living here within inside the walls of Sun City West, and by and large, the largest percentage of folks are obviously 65 to 74 years of age, considered pretty high risk when you talk to the health professionals. For the longest time, this area map used to show Sun City West as a rather light pink color, where our numbers were down, but over the holidays and the like, we've kind of joined the rest of the state now with these kind of numbers, which are ramping up quite rapidly. So talking with our health professionals around the state, they are getting ready to employ the Arizona Crisis Standard for Care Plan, which is basically a triage system. A triage is the process where you determine the priority of the patient being treated and the likelihood of their recovery. So it basically rations patients' treatment. Not if you get injured or hurt in some other fashion and not a COVID-related thing and the hospitals are booked with no beds, potentially a problem. And that's the level that these hospitals locally are operating under. So who gets treated, who's likely to live. These are tough times. I mean, this is not what you expect when you go to the hospital with a broken leg or another kind of injury or issue and whatnot that's not COVID related. It's tough. So our hospitals are really, really stressed at this point, and we are doing everything we can to try to help and ease that for them. So in a triage situation, you go into a hospital and you're going to get slapped with one of these colors. You know, how quickly they're going to be dealing with your issue based on the triage and crisis type management that the medical professionals work with. So again, we are very, very adamant about limiting indoor and outdoor gatherings, the social distancing, 6 feet apart, and mask up. That is, from what we're told outside of the vaccine, that is your best shield. And so we're sticking by that, we believe in it, and we're carrying forward in our best efforts to make sure we're abiding by the health services recommendations and requirements. This is just a brief snapshot that I'd like to share with you relative to all of our clubs within Sun City West. Very tough to read, I apologize for that, but this is just a listing of everything that we're doing indoors with our facilities, and you can see just maybe by the colors of red and black, we're at about a 50% closure level for all of our social clubs and our craft clubs and those types of gathering places that we do, and that's on their own accord. The clubs that we work with on a daily basis, if they're having any kind of outbreaks or issues, they're closing or sterilizing the facility when we're reopening after a week or so, and we're working directly with club presidents as far as their feelings on what their club members are feeling and understanding as to what they feel they need to do with their clubs. So at their own accord, they're working with us and voluntarily closing their facilities for a period of time until they feel it's safe enough to and want to reopen. But as far as our club level goes, we're running at about a 50% level. And that concludes my report as far as the mid-season goes. And again, we update this on a daily basis, and we continue to give reports on a monthly basis moving forward. But again, with the vaccines, Katie, I don't know if you want to just say a word or two about where we're at, because I know things change daily. I think now they're shifting gear and moving down to vaccines being available to folks 65 and over. And we're kind of working with them as far as developing local sites here and where people can go get vaccines. So if you want to give a little update on that, I'd
Sure,
appreciate
absolutely.
it.
We've gotten a lot of questions from folks wondering, can we have a vaccination clinic here in Sun City West? We are in conversations with the county. We've let them know there's a great need for that based on our demographics, as well as the fact that our folks are just asking for it. Trying to make an online reservation and then get down to State Farm Stadium can be a little intimidating for some. So the first step we have implemented already is if you want to call the library's Data Resource Center and set up an appointment, the folks down there will help you get online and make an appointment and walk you through those steps. So that's the first thing we've done. Secondly, there is information on our website and our social media that points out the local Safeway here does have a vaccination clinic, and it is by appointment only. So the information on how to register for that you can find on our website as well as the county's website. And then lastly, we're still keeping those communications open with the county to see if we can be a point of distribution. There's a lot of logistics involved in that, so that's still just being talked about at this time. But check out the Data Resource Center at the library, make an appointment there, or check out the information on our website and call the local Safeways clinic and make yourself an appointment there. They are trying to expedite and get the 65 and older age group vaccinated sooner than later, so they're moving through those different care groups pretty quick, which is nice to see. And as soon as we have more information, we'll certainly post it and get it out to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bill and Katie, for that update. Our next speaker is our CFO, Pete Finelli, and he's going to talk to you about money.
Good morning, everybody. As Sue mentioned, I'm Pete Finelli, the Chief Financial Officer for the association. As part of the mid-year presentation, I would like to briefly update the members on the income statement and the status of the reserve funds, then proceed to advise upon the capital expenditures year-to-date, a brief identification of the impact of COVID within the financial realm, a guideline on our upcoming budget process, and finally, an update on the quest for a financial advisor investment firm. The first item is the income statement. Revenues have been slightly short. If you could advance it. Revenues have been slightly short of budget expectations year to date. While golf activity has been very strong, both in golf fees and ancillary activities such as cart rentals and range balls, negative impacts are being felt within membership revenues due to guest access restrictions. Recreation has been impacted due to the suspension of Explorer and tours. Sports Pavilion due to reduced bowling lane availability and cleaning protocols. Cancellation of special events and reduced food and beverage and merchandise at the golf courses. Shifting to the expense side of the operating, expenses have been favorable to budget in virtually all our categories, most notably in wages and benefits due to some position openings. Utilities, R&M, supplies are occurring. Short benefits have been occurred due to mostly facility closures, and other expenses are also down. A slight overage has been felt in landscape maintenance due to a very difficult golf overseed conversion with the lack of rain. The overall status, therefore, through the first 5 months of November year-to-date is a positive $681,000 on the operating portion of the income statement. It should be noted there are significant COVID-related headwinds that still to be faced by the association in the upcoming months, most notably in guest fees and tenant cards and special events at this current time. Shifting to capital-related portion of the income statement, sizable benefits have been realized in the first 5 months within the reserve fund investments for realized and unrealized gains due to favorable stock market and bond valuation changes. The asset preservation fees have benefited from approximately 100 excess year-to-date of home sales and title transfers versus the budget. Moving on now to the capital portion of my presentation. The governing board, approved just under $5.9 million for the FY 2021 budget year. A brief status of our POs, or purchase orders that have been issued. Just under $3 million have been issued of that 5.9. 428 addressed prior year encumbrances. A brief explanation: encumbrances are the capital approved budget items from prior years that were not issued, and they occurred after July 1st. But the current year has had just about 2.6 million issued year to date. Some good news on the completed projects. Of the 1.49 million that was budgeted for completed projects, we've experienced just under 193,000 of savings upon those items. The next slide for your edification details where that 193 resides. Larger dollar projects are listed there, but almost universally we're staying within or doing very well against what the expectations of the budget were. The governing board recently released the deferred, approximately 1.8 million of deferred capital projects. Listed here are some material projects still to be administered within the second half of the year, including Palm Ridge lighting, metal shop, the scoring system, lockers, park transformers, and golf carts. One portion of your 5.9 million is the allowances. The capital allowances are undefined projects that the governing board allows for. Year to date, we are well below half of the approved amount. As you can kind of see, we're not experiencing any overage except for one within energy conservation, in which we took advantage of savings on future projects by getting it done all at one time. Moving to the reserve funds, the budget anticipated just in the lower 50% range of the fully funded balance percentage to be realized by year end. A brief review of some of the more material items within this spreadsheet shows that we're on track to achieve almost all of the components. In the bolded column in the middle, you'll see the operating cash flow. It's the operating portion of the income statement, 1.6 million. As we said, we're over 600,000 ahead on that. The restricted investment earnings, 500,000, we should realize those. Year to date, the unrealized gain loss is already, as I said, of 1.7 million, and the APFs are on track to be achieved as well. So the inflows should be realized by year end. Moving to the outflows, as I mentioned, we're already about 200,000 favorable on the 5.9 million, and I see no reason that shouldn't be achieved as well. So over the next 5 years, you can see that we're well within being on track to remain in the acceptable range of risk for our fully funded balance percentage. Bill referenced this earlier in his slide presentation regarding the COVID impact on the financial realm. As part of the CARES Act, the association is mandated to provide paid leave for employees affected by COVID, both directly for the employees and their family members. As Bill mentioned, to date, approximately 20K has been designated as COVID leave, and this paid leave will continue. This paid leave program will continue until March 31st. If you do have any questions on that, I would refer you to our HR, who has a very in-depth understanding of that. Shifting to the budget timeline for the upcoming fiscal year 21-22 financial plan / budget. Key dates are identified here. The initial presentation is February 16th, when the Budget and Finance Committee receives the initial capital and operating component of the budget for their review. That reviewed and edited budget upon their recommendations is delivered to the governing board on March 5th. That is not, however, a discussion point for the bylaws or the policies. It's simply to be distributed. For the public consumption, on April 1st, somewhere in that date, the CFO presents the proposed financial plan to the Rec Center News for open publication. On April 9th, this is the first time the governing board has active discussion within the workshop. Community forums then are initiated in mid-April for member input. And finally, at the end of May 22nd, we expect and hope for the approved financial plan by the governing board. And lastly, moving to the reserve funds, we are advancing the process to approve the procurement of a financial advisor / investment firm for the reserve funds. At this time, we expect to complete the RFQ process and deliver an update to the governing board in either April or possibly as early as March. So that concludes my portion of the presentation today.
Thank you, Pete. We do have one question that was submitted prior to this presentation that maybe you can answer right now. It came from Randy and Liz Jacobson, and they ask, is there a 2- and 5-year detailed budgetary plan? And if so, how do we see this plan?
A part of the requirements of the budget process is for the presentation of the 5-year plan. It does include key top-level assumptions, such as percentages of dues increase, expense increase percentages. You saw earlier the capital-related component of the budget for the reserve funds and the based upon those assumptions, whether or not the reserve funds will be within the range of risk, and that is presented throughout the whole budget process.
Okay, so how can they access that?
The prior year one is listed within our published YouTube videos or that we occurred in the virtuals back in May.
Okay,
But for upcoming, it would have to be just as we begin the process of presenting.
okay, thank you. Okay, our next presentation is by Todd Patty. He is our Environmental Service Manager, and he's going to talk about water and irrigation.
Good morning. Today I just have a few updates on water and also irrigation, our irrigation project that we're planning for Grandview Golf Course. First one is the ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, Fourth Management Plan. It is scheduled to go into effect on January 1st of 2023. Golf courses will be required to reduce water use from 4.9 acre feet down to 4.75 acre feet. So that works out to be about 95 acre feet in total for all 7 golf courses as far as a allotment reduction, or about 13 and a half acre feet per golf course. So not a big change. Arizona Department of Water Resources goals for the Fourth Management Plan are to reduce active management area groundwater withdrawals and improve the groundwater supplies through conservation methods. Here in Sun City West, our goals for the Fourth Management Plan are to reduce groundwater usage, update existing conservation programs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and then to develop new management strategies as they are related to irrigation, new irrigation systems, and also turf reduction. And then the Fifth Management Plan, we don't know a whole lot about that. It's still in development and scheduled to go into effect on January 1st of 2025. We are looking at further water restrictions or reduced conservation allotments at that time. Earlier on, they talked about the need to reduce turf, but they've kind of gotten away from that. So they're talking more about reducing the conservation allotments. They will have a savings plan or a flex account for dry years. And then the next work group meeting is scheduled for next month on the 24th, and I'll be in on that phone call, and hopefully I'll get a little more information on the Fifth Management Plan at that time. As I mentioned about water conservation, these are things that we've had in place on the golf courses for a number of years. We have modified irrigation schedules to accommodate the low infiltration rates of our soils. It's called a cycle soak program. And just real quick, what that means is an irrigation valve will water one area on the golf course for a few minutes, and then it'll go to another area, and then maybe an hour later it'll come back to that same spot and water it again. And that'll allow that water to seep into the ground a little bit. We have fertigation systems on each golf course, and that's liquid fertilizer that goes out through the irrigation system at night. We have the ability to transfer stormwater from Deer Valley Golf Course to other irrigation lakes, and we can use that on the golf course. We've developed a water budget and drought management plan, and then turf removal out of play areas. To date, we've taken out about 14 acres, And that's areas, the picture here on the slide, that's number 11 Grandview, Blue Tee. We've taken out grass around the pump stations, around the pro shops, and also around the maintenance yards. Irrigation system upgrades. We've put in new heads, nozzles, upgraded our software programs, and we're on a replacement schedule for our pump stations. Also, satellite controllers have been replaced out in the field. We've reduced our overseeding acreage by about 30 acres that we've taken out of the original overseed plan. As you can see here on the, we paint our target grains, the picture on the bottom left there, that's over at Echo Mesa. I estimated that we've taken about 5 or 6 acres out of our overseed plan just by painting the target greens. Some cultural practices, aerification and thatch removal helps decrease surface evaporation and helps retain moisture. We provide water management training for our employees. We have on-site weather stations to help determine irrigation requirements, and that's uploaded information every night from our weather stations, and then that determines how much water we're going to run for that night. And then shoreline repairs helps reduce water loss through seepage. We just completed a project over at Pebblebrook on number 10 and 18 this past summer. So on to our water usage report for last year, for 2020. We used 3,885 acre-feet of water, and again, this is for all 7 golf courses. That put us 32 acre-feet under our conservation allotment, or if you break that out per golf course, it's about 4.63 acre-feet. So we did pretty good considering the summer that we had, the extreme heat and lack of rainfall. So I was surprised to see that we were actually under our allotment. Our rainfall totals for 2020 came in at 6.30, and most of that was received during the winter months. Again, we didn't have a great monsoon season. So talking about weather, it was a record-setting 2020, fewest rain days on record. The average rain days are 36. Last year in 2019, we had 43. The lowest was back in 1953 and 2002 at 18, and you can see we set a new record last year for 15. It was the hottest summer on record, 53 days at 110 plus. The old record was 33 from 2011. And then second warmest year on record, average temp was 77.2, and the record was 77.3, and that was from 2017. And this is a 15-year water usage chart here. The years in yellow are years that we are over our conservation allotment, and as you can see, starting in 2013, we were under our allotment, and we've been that way for the last 8 years. And if you look at 2013 and look at the rainfall totals, 3.72, and still under our allotment, that's pretty good. So this kind of tells a story that I think all the time and effort and money that we put into our conservation projects are starting to pay off. And the last update is the Grandview Irrigation and Turf Reduction Project. And we put together a little bit of a timeline here. Starting this year in 2021, July and August, we'll budget for design and installation of road crossing main lines. We'll select an architect and then complete the property survey. In November, we'll go through the bidding process. In 2022, May and June, we'll actually do the install of the main lines, road crossings. And July of 2022, we'll budget for the landscape and irrigation install. And in April of 2023, we'll close the golf course and then break ground on irrigation and turf reduction project. August, we're looking at a completion date somewhere around the 1st of August. We'll go into overseeding, and then the golf course will reopen in October of 2023 after the overseeding. So that concludes my updates for today.
Thank you very much, Todd.
You're welcome.
Next, let's take a look at our construction progress, and that will be presented by Carl Wilhelm. He is our Capital Projects Manager.
Good morning. It's been a fantastic season to be able to share all the projects that have been completed. Just a reminder that capital projects are shared across all of our departments. Primarily, what I'm showing you today is the things that I personally have been able to get accomplished through the Facilities Maintenance Department. And as Pete Finelli, our CFO, has shared, that we are in a very favorable position across all capital. So as I move forward, I'd like to say that the Coons projects of fiscal year 19 and 20 are 100% complete. They included quilters, weavers, the fitness addition, locker room showers, repair and replacement, storage room addition, the parking lot expansion, the courtyard renovation, spa room remodel, and directional signage that was placed throughout Coons. These projects have turned out quite nicely, and a few people have had some short interims to be able to check out their new club quarters and use some of the facilities. I know that COVID is not allowing us to fully use those areas, but once that frees up, I hope that everybody enjoys it. A few photos here are, like you can see the new Weavers area, the courtyard expansion. We have all the furniture in place currently, and the storage room that was added near the leather room. A nice piece here for showing the new spa room remodel over at Kuntz. And after completing all of the 1920 capital projects for Kuntz, we also had the FY 2021 approved projects, which included the pool deck resurface and resealing and striping the parking lots. In addition, the art room got a new accordion partition, and we have just completed the interior lighting conversion that falls under the allowance of energy conservation. One of the very favorable items there is we budgeted a certain dollar amount. Our vendors came in positive in their dollars. We were actually able to convert all of the LED lighting in all rooms at Kuntz and completing another whole rec center. In FY 22-23, we plan on finalizing this conservation program with the R.H. Johnson facilities, and that will complete all conversions for all rec centers. FY 19-20 carryover of the large dog park was completed in October of 2020. And you can see here that we've had quite the large complement of grass and dog use areas as requested by our members and clubs, and it has turned out quite beautifully. We have walked that area on multiple days and gotten the input from the members that use it, and it's been super favorable. We have had quite the great response for that new park. It also allows on the west end near the lawn bowling area to have over 20 golf cart parking for anybody that brings their dogs via a mobile golf cart. So in the FY 2021 budget cycle, some of our projects at R.H. Johnson included the Memos Cafe gas line. We converted from electricity, saving a lot of electricity off of our grid and high impact to our supply, and was able to put in a gas system for the restaurant. As the pictures show here, it included the meter, energy efficient water heater system, and then the ability to have all the appliance safely on gas as opposed to the high demand electric. Over at the sports pavilion, that allowed us to also do the entry flooring, and we have replaced all the sprinkler heads throughout the whole building. They have met their age. Over the last couple of years, we've had some sprinkler heads go off randomly, and this allows us to protect all the bowling assets that we have there. R.H. Johnson also had the library countertop replacement, as you see in the photo here. This is a nice complement to all the millwork that was in great shape, but the countertops of old needed replacement. These are an extended life solid surface countertops as opposed to the old laminate that we had before. Quite nice. And we just completed the library flat roof restoration over the last few weeks. And you can see in the photo here, this is quite the improvement to the way the parapet walls were and the roofing surface itself. We do budget in our capital tracker roof replacement over a 20 and 30-year cycles of the buildings. This restoration that gains us a 10-year warranty, and we average a 12 to 15-year life out of these restorations, which in the long run eliminates us from having to actually do a roof replacement. So the benefit of this maintenance is preserving our buildings from having the larger dollar actual roof tear off. Over at Beardsley, the FY 2021 projects included sagebrush and photography room flooring replacement, arts and crafts, flat roof restoration, arts and crafts parking lot seal and stripe, and the children's play area required a new surface, safety for the children and use. We did a new pour and play restoration. In these photos here, you see the flooring over at Sagebrush and the photography room. Facilities maintenance did a fine job on restoring the walls with new paint. Facility leadership did new decor in the rooms, and the Sagebrush room just looks phenomenal. And the next photo slide that you see here is the restoration of the Beardsley roof, arts and crafts building. Last year we did the aquatics, so the facility is fully restored on its roofs. And this gives you a nice high-level photo of how the sealant coating and the parapet wall work is once it's completed. And a picture overhead of the sealed parking lot. Some projects for golf are completed by me, and some are completed by Todd Patty. My portion of the project this year was the Pebblebrook parking lot mill and replacement. We had a successful tear out and replacement of that parking lot. The photo depicts how nice it's turned out. We also did a driving range electrical upgrade for ball, T-range ball machines and other use for on the driving range. And then we did a Grand View parking lot seal and stripe. And that is where we are up to date for our FY 2021 projects. The governing board did release the funds to move forward with the deferred projects after reviewing income, and those are currently being scheduled or in progress. So some of the milestones coming up or that happened this year, very favorable. Coons projects, overall $120,000 under budget. The CMAR for the overall expansions, parking lot expansion, courtyard renovation, the CMAR GC contract agreement was completed for $15,000 less than the contracted amount, and that savings comes back to the rec centers. And then energy saving LED lighting conversion is now operational in 3 of the 4 rec centers. The large dog park, we had overwhelming positive user response and successfully completed by the new self-performing general contractor. So not only did it get done at a great value, we earned the trust and relationship of a new general contractor. Rec centers CIP projects, all FY 19 and 20 carryover projects are 100% complete. 22 of approximately 36 FY 2021 projects have been completed by year-end 2020. The FY 21-22 projects are $121,000 under budget to date. No projects were delayed due to the COVID-19. And the metal shop plans as an update and the documents are ready for Maricopa County review. So we are moving forward with all the discussions that we've had previously about the metal shop. And then finally, deferred budget projects. The governing board approved continuation of the budget funds, and remaining approved projects are scheduled and underway. So thank you. It's been a very successful half-year season, and I look forward to the next 6 months. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Carl. You certainly were busy. I can attest to that, and the beautiful results are absolutely wonderful to appreciate. Next speaker is Donna Maloney, and Donna is our governing board secretary, and she is in charge of the chartered clubs. She's the chairperson, so she's going to give a little bit of a report on the RR&P accomplishments. The RR&Ps are the rules that and procedures that are followed by our chartered club officers in running their organizations.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sue. Over the last 18 months, staff and the committee have worked diligently in updating the rules, regulations, and procedures for chartered clubs, updating into the digital age, improving forums with accessibility online, and including virtual meetings with voting. Next slide. We updated member conduct and created a disciplinary actions form, CR 16. Next slide, Katie. We updated the capital projects form, CR 13, and added a new CR 13A outlining step-by-step procedures. Next slide, Katie. We included definitions for guests as one who participates in any club activity using equipment and/or supplies within the club versus a visitor as one who observes or tours a club activity not using equipment and/or supplies within the club. Last slide, Katie. We continue to work together and in continuing to move forward. Katie, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Donna. Our last presentation is by Katie O'Grady, and she's our General Service Manager. She's going to talk a little bit about YouTube and the electronics that we've been put into in a rapid succession this year.
Thanks, Sue. And thanks for all of you who are watching this as we live stream it. I know many more of you are going to be watching it at your convenience. That's a beautiful thing about these pre-recorded meetings. It has increased our turnout when you consider how many people come back and watch these meetings after the fact. So if there's a bright spot we can find in all of this COVID madness, it's the fact that these meetings are available to you on the website and you can watch them at your leisure. So we tried to make it as simple as possible to find these videos. If you just go to suncitywest.com, that's our main website. You can find the link there, but if you can remember it, it's suncitywest.com / and then GB videos. So on the screen, you'll see there's a little link down there. It says Governing Board Video Meetings. When you get to there, you can click on that, and that's going to take you directly to our YouTube channel. So once you get to this YouTube channel, you can tell it's a really long URL. It's kind of difficult to remember, so just remember that GB videos and click on that link, and then you're going to end up on our YouTube page, and it's going to look like what you see here. The quickest way to find what you're looking for is to click on the playlists. The playlists are the way that we categorize our different meetings. So we've got committee and governing board meetings that are categorized by month. So if you know when a particular meeting or committee meeting happened, just go to that month. We also have our Torch educational videos on here. Those are something that we started, again, due to COVID and the fact that we couldn't have our Torch academies. We wanted to keep education at the forefront of the community. And so we've been creating these little educational videos on a whole range of topics, from CC&Rs to what your dues go toward, to the new golf lab over at Grandview. So a lot of, some of it fun, some of it informational, but they're nice, short, easy to digest videos. You'll find those under the Torch playlist. So we've also got the general manager updates, some other ones, but just pick the playlist you're trying to get to. Remember, the playlist icon is at the top there, and when you click on it, you'll see this menu of items below. You click on the playlist you want, that you're interested in, and then over here on the bottom right, you'll see all the different videos that are available to you. Usually the big one up at the top left is going to be the one that's coming forward in the future. The next one, so for example, the live meeting that's about to happen, usually going to be up there, but if you don't see it, just come down here, and that'll show you all the videos that are in that individual playlist. So we know your time is valuable, and since these meetings are pre-recorded, if you don't want to watch an entire meeting, but you want to jump forward to a particular topic that was discussed at that meeting, you can hover over the time bar on those videos, and as you move forward, it'll give you a little generic summary of what's being discussed during those time snippets. So it's a nice way to fast forward if you're only interested in one topic on a governing board meeting. So again, just with COVID and us not being able to meet in person, it has been pretty difficult. We're trying to make it as simple as possible for you to find things online. So I wanted to talk just real quick about the upcoming governing board meeting, or governing board election. That'll be in March, and as we have done for the past several years, you're going to be able to vote online so long as we have an email address on file for you. And this would have to be an email address that's unique to you, not one that you share with a spouse. So if you're not sure, just send us an email, and you can simply send it to vote@suncitywest.com and include your name, your rec card number, and the email you want us to put on file for you. And then when that March election comes around, we will get an email out to you with an invitation to vote online. For those of you that just like coming in and voting in person, there will be an election day at the Data Resource Center. You can come in and vote in person as well. So all of that information is also on our website, and you can just go to suncitywest.com/2021 election. If you can't remember all that, just start at suncitywest.com, and it will take you to all these great things that you can find online. And lastly, we do love it when our residents can show up and can ask us questions in person, but unfortunately with the spike in cases, we're doing this digitally. So if there's any questions we didn't answer today, or just something that comes up later you want to ask us, simply send an email to questions@suncitywest.com, and we will get that to the right person and get you an answer. And that could be anything that was discussed today or anything that is just on your mind about life here in Sun City West. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. We have no current questions that have been emailed, but as Katie said, be sure to send them and we'll get it to the right person. Otherwise, I thank the presenters and thank the audio-video people for conducting this first video presentation. And thank you, any people in the audience who are listening.